defined by the Bureau of Justice Statistics, capital punishment refers to the process of sentencing convicted offenders to death for the most serious crimes, capital crimes, and then carrying out that sentence. This speech revolves around the idea that if those convicted for serious enough crimes, should they be punished with death rather than conventional imprisonment? Is a person able to lose their right to live? I will be taking a stance against capital punishment and providing research to support that idea. The first piece from my research is Ethics of Capital Punishment by Richard G. V. Dellon. In the article, it goes over how execution teams would use selective moral disengagement and dehumanization, as well as other psychological mechanisms to protect themselves. What these teams were essentially doing is viewing those receiving capital punishment as less than or something than a human in order to proceed with the executions. The article further says that in this process, we dehumanize ourselves. To come to terms with taking the lives of those under capital punishment, they resort to psychological tactics similar to that of war propaganda. In the article, The Misperception of Public Opinion Toward Capital Punishment, examining the spuriousness explanation of death penalty support by Edmund F. McGarrell and Marla Sanders, this article was featured in the magazine The American Behavioral Scientist. It covers contention over the Eighth Amendment and capital punishment. For those unfamiliar with the Eighth Amendment, it is that excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. Many have argued that capital punishment falls under cruel and unusual punishment. This is entirely based on the perception of those responsible for interpreting the Constitution, though, as the Supreme Court has ruled that capital punishment, such as death, does not violate the evolving standards of decency that are used to determine if capital punishment is cruel and or unusual. That was not the only time capital punishment and the death penalty has found itself on the eyes of the Supreme Court, as explored in the article Capital Punishment, Atonement, and the Christian Right by Randall Stiers. The Supreme Court case Furman v. State of Virginia in 1972 is a time when being convicted of the death penalty was actually ruled as unconstitutional. Now, this does not apply to all situations involving the death penalty, as this was a very specific case where they found it to be unconstitutional. At the time, 2 out of the 9 Supreme Court justices actually did believe that all cases of the death penalty are unconstitutional. Now, within the Supreme Court case, there are other occurrences of contention about capital punishment and the Eighth Amendment. One of those being of possible discrimination within the court system, where there was a racial bias against black defendants being more likely to receive capital punishment than other defendants. The issues around racial discrimination in the court system are further explored by Daniel LaChance in the article Executing Humanity, Legal Consciousness and Capital Punishment in the United States. In the southern United States, a significant majority of capital punishments were on black defendants. They also received a lower amount of press coverage, leaving the issue of discrimination and racial bias remaining outside of the public eye. Prison time and capital punishment just existing can also be a deterrent against criminal activity. The paper, Does Capital Punishment Deter White-Collar Crime? It analyzes data from several different countries' rates of capital punishment and then white-collar crime, specifically the crimes of corruption and shadow economy. The results of the study ended up kind of mixed, where just the existence of the death penalty was not able to deter any other possible white-collar criminals, but there were also cases where having it didn't really affect anything. To put this all together, capital punishment is not an easy or simple topic to cover. There will always be strong opinions on either view of the matter, but using the researched information from the sources that I collected, this is what I am using to support my stance on that of capital punishment, taking in the psychological, the ethical aspects, the legal aspects, and the cultural aspects. This is why I chose to be against capital punishment and overall the death penalty.